Guys, this show was amazing. Tales of the Jedi is one of the most anticipated Star Wars shows this year, and for good reason. The trailer alone surpassed The Mandalorian Season 3's teaser trailer in terms of views. It's time to see if the show lives up to the hype. For me, Tales of the Jedi is easily one of the best Star Wars shows I've ever seen, and I'll go into why later on. This is Dave Filoni at his very best, with each episode surpassing the last. Let's jump in and break it down. Our first story begins on Ahsoka's homeworld of Shili, where we witness her birth. All of the locals gather around the newly born to meet her for the first time. Her mother announces her name, Ahsoka. The intro rolls and we now pick up, I think, around a year later, when Ahsoka's about 1 year old. A Tograta tradition is for the mother to go hunting with their child, which could be on their first birthday. Ahsoka's father tells Pavti, which is her mother, so this could indicate that Ahsoka is related to Shakti somewhere along the lines, that the tradition is old now, it's for their ancestors, it doesn't have to be for her and Ahsoka. Pavti decides to stick to a tradition and away they go. On their way to the forest, the village elder called Gantika wishes them luck on their quest and wipes a blue substance, it could be a powder or a paste, on their foreheads to represent this. During the hunt, Pavti and Ahsoka find and shoot a Kaibuck, which is the Star Wars equivalent to a goat. Little do they know, they're being hunted as well by a bear-like creature, which confronts Pavti, who gives her all trying to defend Ahsoka. The villagers are alerted to something being up in the forest due to the unusual amount of shots being fired, and scramble to come to the mother and daughter's aid. They do arrive too late on the back end of the fight, where the beast knocks Pavti down and carries Ahsoka into the forest. The Togratas gave up pretty quick, in my opinion, in pursuing the beast, which they then gather a troop to continue their search later that night. After being carried back to the creature's den, Ahsoka's very much on the menu, with the beast approaching her, licking its lips, until Ahsoka stands up and touches the beast's nose, demonstrating a force ability called beast control, something Anakin Skywalker himself once demonstrated with a reek on Geonosis. To the surprise of the villagers, Ahsoka emerges from the forest riding on the creature's back. Pavti takes Ahsoka and the family are reunited. The village elder then announces that Ahsoka is a Jedi. The elder is clearly very wise and has most likely had interactions with a Jedi before. In fact, this could be Ahsoka's grandmother, come to think of it, and Shakti could be something like an auntie. The show follows the Star Wars timeline to a T, so it starts 36 BBY with Ahsoka's birth, and it carries on like that with each show appearing later in the timeline until we get up to a point in the 6th episode where we're past the events of Revenge of the Sith. So in the next episode, it takes us back to before the Phantom Menace and follows a younger Dooku as a Jedi. Dooku and his Padawan Qui-Gon Jinn are dispatched on a mission to retrieve Senator Dagonet's child that has been kidnapped. They arrive on a grim-looking planet which has been mistreated and failed by the Republic or the Senate, and the Senator they elected to look out for him. Upon entering a bar, the two Jedi make their identities known as Dooku places his saber on the table, and the locals reveal themselves to be the kidnappers and take them to the child, who has been treated well for a prisoner. He doesn't blame the locals for abducting him, and he can't believe how his father has allowed his own people, because this is where they both come from, to suffer in this way. Senator Dagonet arrives with a group of soldiers and demands the Jedi arrest the kidnappers and free his son, telling them that they serve the Senate. Dooku tells the Senator they actually serve the people of the Republic before igniting their lightsabers and defending as many locals as they can from the onslaught of blaster fire from the soldiers. This is great because it foreshadows the very reason Dooku leaves the Jedi Order, as they were so wrapped up in politics and strayed away from their true purpose. The soldiers eventually stop shooting, seeing they're not making any headway, where the Senator declares he'll destroy the entire town. Dooku here shows us the first glimpse of his fall to the dark side and proceeds to force choke the Senator, telling him corruption like his must be eradicated, preparing to strike him down with his lightsaber. Qui-Gon attempts to stop him but is forced pushed away, so he goes inside the barn where the son's being kept, frees him, hoping Dooku will show mercy for the son's sake, that the son's disappointment in his father could be enough to turn things around for the town. Qui-Gon's plan prevails, and the episode closes out with Dooku admitting that Qui-Gon is a far wiser man than he is, that his actions saved many lives today as they walk towards their ship. We now move over to episode 3, which is Dooku's second episode in the timeline, where we find him and Mace Windu travelling to Rexus to retrieve the body of a murdered Jedi called Katari. Dooku senses more is at play, and despite the Council's orders and Windu's attempts to get the pair to stay on task, Dooku takes matter into his own hands and investigates further, questioning why Jedi Master Katari was killed but the Senator somehow survived the attack. From the moment the Jedi meet the Senator, who is accompanied by guards, something seems off to the pair, with the Senator claiming it was an attack by rebels who threatened war. Dooku asks to be taken to the scene of the ambush to investigate further, However, the senator is at first hesitant, but one of the guards speak up and offer to take them. As they arrive at the location, which is in a forest, the struggle that happened there becomes all the more evident, with trees damaged by blaster fire and marks left on rocks. The Jedi notice all of the blaster marks come from the direction of where the ship landed, indicating the attack came from behind as the Jedi disembarked the ship. They also point out that it's very rare for a Jedi to be caught off guard like this, unless the attack come from someone they trusted, someone they wouldn't mind turning their back to. Which also applies to Order 66, which of course takes place in the future. The reason the clones were so successful in killing as many Jedi is because 1, they massively outnumbered them, but 2, a lot of the attacks came from behind. The Jedi wasn't suspecting it. It's revealed that the senator's guards carried out the attack standing up against the people in power that are destroying their homeworld and selling pieces of it off. Also disillusioned by the Jedi who keep law and order for the rich and the powerful, rather than acting as protectors of peace and justice. This perspective really strikes a chord with Dooku, who over the years has come to largely agree with that perspective himself, which we see at the start of episode 1. Dooku is witnessing the damage caused by corruption within the Senate firsthand, whilst also believing the Jedi, being as close to the Senate they are enabling it to happen. Before disembarking the planet after learning the truth surrounding the death of Katari, Dooku asks Windu if he believes the Jedi will continue bringing peace if they take everything the Senate says as law. We cut to the funeral of Katari, where we see a few familiar faces in attendance such as Yoda, Plo Koon, Terrace Nube and others, whilst Ki-Adi-Mundi makes a speech. After the funeral, Dooku asks Windu if he knew before their mission that he was being presented with Katari's council seat, clearly a little bit jealous here. Windu didn't and tells Dooku he will speak to them on his behalf. This episode really pushes Dooku to his limits of his commitment to the Jedi Order. He's already becoming delusional with the Order, and now he feels like he's being punished by trying to do what he thinks is right. At this point, you'll have to agree with what I'm saying. Every episode seems to be getting better than the last, and this episode is Dooku's third and final episode before we catch back up with Ahsoka for the final 2. We find Dooku accessing the Jedi archives and deleting Kamino under the orders of Darth Sidious himself, aka Palpatine. This happens during the events of the Phantom Menace. Dooku is already being manipulated here. Whilst inside the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, Dooku encounters his old apprentice Qui-Gon, this time being voiced by Liam Neeson, which is great, and asks him about the Sith he had encountered on Tatooine. Dooku is already aware of Maul's presence in the galaxy and his ties to Palpatine, but didn't seem aware of Maul's willingness to take out Dooku's former apprentice, someone Dooku clearly holds a deep affection for. Yaddle joins the former master and apprentice as they speak, with Yaddle also being voiced by Bryce Dallas Howard, stating the Jedi Council's position on Qui-Gon's report of the Sith is to remain calm but cautious until more information comes their way, essentially. This leads to Dooku questioning if the Council believes the report. With the dangers the Sith comes with, it should be treated much more seriously. Dooku tells Qui-Gon he won't be there to protect him, as he's no longer part of the Order himself, and this is where Qui-Gon mentions his own apprentice Obi-Wan, saying he equips himself quite well and Dooku needn't worry. As Qui-Gon departs, Yaddle asks Dooku if he's alright, sensing something isn't right within him. I think these two could have been old friends. Dooku replies, telling Yaddle their students grow up so fast, having a very proud parent kind of moment for Qui-Gon. The next scene we get, a short time has passed and Qui-Gon has already re-encountered Maul, where he was defeated and killed by him. This scene takes place towards the end of the Phantom Menace, just prior to Qui-Gon's funeral. Dooku is outside visiting a tree which he used to bring Qui-Gon to when Qui-Gon was younger. Yaddle at this point has approached him from behind to try and console him. Dooku tells Yaddle how Qui-Gon was fascinated by the tree as a boy. He grew up on Coruscant, which is full of concrete. There's not really much greenery there at all. It becomes clear that Dooku is holding the Jedi Council responsible for Qui-Gon's death, as they didn't take his report of a Sith Lord seriously enough. Dooku departs Coruscant and arrives on Geonosis, where he meets up with Palpatine. Unaware he was being followed by a suspicious Yaddle, Dooku is visibly upset by Maul's willingness to kill Qui-Gon, with Palpatine telling him that Dooku has lost an apprentice, and so has he, referring to Maul's apparent death to the hands of Obi-Wan, which we see in The Phantom Menace. During this conversation, Dooku seems remorseful for his actions, that so many people have died as a result of him. Palpatine tells him it's the price to pay for the greater good. Here is where Yaddle has heard enough. She confronts Dooku and Sidious, telling Dooku that she's also stepped away from the Council, disillusioned with the way things were going herself, telling Dooku that it isn't too late, he can right his wrongs by standing with her now and bringing Palpatine to justice. Palpatine's up to his old tricks here, or should I say new tricks. He hasn't technically used them on Anakin just yet, convincing Dooku that the Jedi are evil and Yaddle cannot be trusted. Dooku and Yaddle engage in a fight, with Dooku seemingly crushing her with the door of the aircraft hangar. Again, we can tell Dooku isn't happy with what he's doing. He does look down to the floor after doing this, but he's going through with it nonetheless for the greater good, or so he thinks. Using the Force and the rest of her energy in a real epic moment, Yaddle opens the hangar door, which clearly didn't kill her, using the Force before succumbing to her fatigue for doing so and falling to the floor, leaving herself vulnerable to Sidious and Dooku. She's clearly out of it, similar to how Grogu becomes after using the Force. It could be something to do with their race in general, demonstrating just how powerful Yoda really is himself. Dooku again claims he wants to bring peace and order to the galaxy before igniting his lightsaber and striking a defenseless Yaddle down, killing her. A smile creeps upon Palpatine's face as the episode draws to a close. In episode 5 we rejoin Ahsoka, and this episode comes in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. We meet Anakin rushing to watch Ahsoka's Jedi test against training remotes designed to simulate battle droids. Obi-Wan is already there as well as Yoda. Obi-Wan remarks just how quick Ahsoka is at learning. Ahsoka does well in the test, however Anakin doesn't seem impressed, telling her outside that droids are predictable and puts her up against a real test. The pair make their way to a hangar where Captain Rex and his troops really put Ahsoka through her paces. With their weapons set to stun, Anakin makes sure of that of course. They surround Ahsoka with Anakin watching on. The training is brutal, but it will be effective and it will come to save her life at some stage. She fights with a single blade and falls countless times. Each time she goes down, she blacks out. The first time she was down for as long as an hour, which seems to shorten each time she's hit. At one stage, Ahsoka calls the training ridiculous after getting frustrated, and Anakin tells her that the best way he can protect her is to teach her to protect herself. After this talk with Anakin, Ahsoka performs much better, holding her own against the clones for 5 minutes before being knocked down again. This time Rex hands Ahsoka a second lightsaber. This time she does far better, and you can see Anakin is visibly pleased with the look on his face. The next scene we cut to is post-Order 66. Rex is walking with Ahsoka and tells her he hopes all that training pays off, before he puts his helmet on and walks behind her, pointing the blaster at her back whilst her hands are above her head. They walk through the doors to the rest of the clone troopers. The episode draws in, and we continue with the 6th and Ahsoka's 3rd episode. We begin this episode during Padme's funeral, lining up nicely with the end of Revenge of the Sith. Bail Organa is present paying his respects when he spots Ahsoka with her hood up opposite him on the other side, who then leaves as quickly as possible. Bao catches up with Ahsoka as she's making her way towards the ship, informing her she shouldn't be there, it's too dangerous. And Ahsoka responds by telling Bao she's there because Padme was a friend. Bao and Ahsoka walk together towards the ship. He gives her a device as a way to contact him secretly if she ever needs anything. Initially she rejects the offer before troopers interrupt the two while they're talking, and Ahsoka needs to hiding underneath the balcony that they were looking over. Still holding the device, she walks towards the ship where Rex is keeping guard for her. After the credits we cut to a moon called Rada in the Outer Rim, where Ahsoka is going under the name of Ashla, the same way Obi-Wan took on the name of Ben whilst on Tatooine. The community she's living with there seems to be a mix of different species, and Ahsoka and the group seem to grow some kind of straw or some kind of crop which they sell as a way to survive. A woman who befriends Ahsoka, who I think takes inspiration from Kaden in the Ahsoka novel, is saved by her when a pile of hay falls over. Ever since then, this girl knows Ahsoka is a Jedi, and so does a young boy who lives there within the group, although this boy would prove to be a big problem. Ahsoka and the girl take the cart full of straw to be sold. As they do, the boy shouts out, "May the Force be with you," as they're leaving. Now, being a Jedi is something Ahsoka has never admitted to, but these two have kind of guessed it. Upon their return, the village is on fire. The boy who suspected Ahsoka was a Jedi, and who is an Imperial loyalist himself it seems, informs the Empire of Ahsoka's presence on Rada, which leads to an Inquisitor being sent there to investigate. As the Inquisitor is about to kill the boy for lying, as he's found no Jedi on the moon, Ahsoka reveals herself. The boy's reward for telling the truth was also going to be death, as the Inquisitor prepares to kill him before Ahsoka force pulls him away to safety. After a short standoff, Ahsoka, wielding no lightsabers but just the Force, disarms the Inquisitor and kills him. She tells the surviving locals, which seem to be the boy and his family essentially, that they need to leave, they aren't safe and more will come. She uses the device Bail Organa gave her to contact him and take the family to safety. It's revealed here that Ahsoka is no longer in hiding and that now is the right time for her to return. As I mentioned earlier, this show is truly amazing, a masterpiece that embodies the exact reasons most of us love Star Wars. The stories, the characters, music and tones of the show were spot on. I really do hope we get a season 2. Well guys, thanks for checking out the breakdown, and may the Force be with you.